Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and cockles presented by Bolin Media. Please respect and enjoy the podcast. I am Brother Ross here with Brother Barrett. And Brother Barrett, I realized I don't think I've asked you what you think of the intro sequence for Foundation.
Oh, no?
Like the theme music and visuals.
Yeah. I like it. It's good. I like the music. I think the visuals are good. They get me in the right headspace for the show.
Sure.
And we'll continue to talk about this as the season continues. But season 1, which we very much described as kind of heady and cerebral, and I know that some people feel is slower paced. But it was very much like this kind of like, it just had this like mystique to it and this very like expansive kind of almost like foreboding, overarching like theme and motif. And we talked about the scale of it all. And it was just like, it was kind of like dark and almost like oppressing in a way, just because it was because of that like gravity and not in the space law of nature way, but in like the weighty burden of it all. Does this make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was a little darker.
Yeah, and so I feel like the intro really, really, really tied into that. Now, in the second season, where there's just a little bit more whimsy.
I'd say a lot more. A lot more.
There's a lot more whimsy.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure that the intro sequence really like ties to the show as much, which is something that I've definitely noticed. Beyond that, I will just say that like starting in whatever it was, 2013, what was season 1 of Westworld come out?
Something like that. Basically, everybody watched the Westworld intro sequence and was like, yep, that's the one. Got to do that. And almost every single intro since then for a prestige drama television show has basically been influenced by the Westworld intro in some way, shape, or form. And this one is heavy. Definitely.
Heavily influenced by that OG Westworld.
Yeah,
intro.
major Westworld vibes during this one. And I think because the reason I ask, I've gotten to the point now where I skip it every time. Okay. Every time that skip intro pops up.
This season, you know?
Yeah, but you know how it is. Like there are certain shows where the intro, I mean, White Lotus and Succession being two recent ones, where the intro really gets you in the headspace and gets you hyped.
Well, nobody's skipping the White Lotus.
No,
intro.
that'd be insanity.
I'd skip the Game of Thrones one before I skip the White Lotus one.
Yeah, I agree with. Well, mostly because I've seen the Game of Thrones one like 2,000 times at this point. But yeah, so I mean, this show's intro isn't doing much to get me hyped. I'm just kind of like, yeah, the fucking Prime Radiant, I get it. Boop, skip intro. Music's okay. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I think generally it accomplishes the vibe of the show. It's just very galactic mathematics and fucking. I was just curious what you thought.
I like when they scan the heads and all the heads are like kind of like dissolving from the back and like floating out into space. And then obviously there's the hand holding the Prime Radiant, and I feel like that we saw the hand on the planet that is not Ignis.
Oh yeah, I didn't even connect those dots. Yeah,
and it's holding the Prime Radiant in the intro, and then like Harry's on the hand on that planet, and like
wow,
you know, there might be something going on there.
Is Harry the Prime Radiant?
Yeah. Speaking of Harry, just learned because Episode 5 especially. I think I started to feel this way in Episode 4, but Episode 5 definitely, I was like, I should probably be watching with subtitles because I'm missing so many words.
Yeah, this is a challenging one, man.
Yeah.
It's like one of those shows where it's not like there are altogether enough strong accents to really put you in a place where you feel like it's an obvious subtitle show. But
no, it's almost more like
a lot.
It's almost more like the sound engineering. It's not even necessarily the accents. It's just the way that some of the conversation happens and other noises that are happening or whatever it might be. But like many times, I'm going through a scene and being like, I think I got the gist of that.
Yeah.
Doing a little like squinted eyes thing. But I caught that Harry is Hari.
Yep. Yeah.
Here I've been, like a schmuck, just thinking this was regular old Harry.
Harry.
Harry. No.
Potter? Yeah, everybody else has freaking weird names like Salvor.
It's cool Harry, like Harry Neff.
Who the hell's Harry Neff?
She's a pop culture she's an actor.
Okay, well, she's a she, which was the first starting surprise for me.
And yeah. So Hari,
Well, Gale is Gaal.
What is it?
Gaal.
Oh, okay.
Is
all right.
Gale.
Naturally.
Gal. Salvor is spelled like you would think it is.
Yeah.
And then Harry's Hari.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strange names. They like to do this.
Cleon.
These old sci-fi fantasy writers, they like to hit you with the strange spellings and the weird names. Like George R. R. Martin is probably the goat of this.
Right.
He cannot have a normal name in his show. He has to make it strange in some way. Well, let's jump into Season 2, Episode 4 of Foundation, which is titled Where the Stars Are Scattered Thinly. And first, we can check in with our bad boy General Bel Rios and his husband, Glaewyn Kerr. There's two weird names for you. These two are on a very Star Trek style adventure in this episode. I think we've made a lot of sci-fi references.
Yep.
In the first few episodes, we've talked about Westworld already today, but also Star Wars is probably the biggest one that comes up. But Star Trek is one I do not think we have mentioned, that Bel Rios and Glaewyn Kerr take a little bit of a Star Trek-esque adventure here. They land on Siwana.
When it's just feeling Star Trek-y with the fleet and the uniforms and and then the beam me down Scotty, basically, where I'm pretty sure I got this right. Should have the subtitles on for this one. But I'm pretty sure they said that they were 25,000 kilometers away from the planet.
Well, I mean, even if if it was 2,500,
an insane distance from the planet is what they're saying. I looked it up, and it's like they're like 500 miles away, or like 5,000 miles away.
Yeah,
they say that they are an incredible distance from the planet. Up
and then
in
they
that ship.
just jump on
down there. And then
they
just jump on out, and in 3 seconds, like in their little space suits, they're just like on the ground.
Yeah,
that was bad. That was a mistake.
Made it seem too easy.
Way, way, way too easy. They said they were so far away. They're like hovering up, like basically just like, not even in orbit. Like they're just way, way far away. Anyways. Yeah.
Well, Siwana is the planet we saw Polly Verisov and Brother Constant converting the locals with their magic show and the fireworks and the Job shooting coins out of his cuffs all over the place.
Yeah.
Which is where you noticed that one character, you were like, that guy, I think there was one guy on Siwana that looked like he was from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And it was Locke. Locke, he's one of like the scumbag pieces of shit that has, I think he cuts off Jaime Lannister's hand.
You are right. And
yeah.
I confused it because I said that he gets his hand cut off.
Oh, yeah.
I remembered the hand. I remembered
the one
hand being cut off, but you are correct, sir. He is the one that does he is the one who knocks. He cuts off the hand.
He is the one who cuts.
Yeah.
So on Siwana, Bel and Glaewyn are investigating whether the Foundation is a threat to Empire at Day's behest. If you've somehow not tracked their storyline so far, it's pretty straightforward. Bel Rios was on a penal colony because he disobeyed orders. He's been there for 6 years. He thought his husband was dead. His husband is alive. Now he's back in the employ of Empire, and he's out trying to figure out what's happening on the Outer Reach, and this is the first place they stop, is Siwana. So Rios and Kerr do some, like Barrett said, crazy sky jumping from the ship to the planet thing, and then they walk through the desert. They meet some locals. They fight some locals. They almost get killed by some locals.
They get into a real nasty brawl here.
Western gunslinging out there in the sand, but they kill all of them except for one.
Yeah.
I would note Bel Rios is extremely turned on by this encounter. It's been some time since the old timer has really gotten to.
Some people just get a real jolt from getting punched in the face.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And then
they
got sliced a little
too.
They
can't get enough. Yeah.
And hadn't experienced combat in a long time, and he really, really thoroughly enjoyed that.
Much to the chagrin of
Glaewyn.
Of Glaewyn.
Yeah.
This isn't you.
Don't lose yourself.
Don't lose yourself.
Yeah. Glaewyn has some on the nose lines in this episode.
I will say I thought that this episode went quite a distance to dispel our theorizing that Glaewyn is not actually Glaewyn.
Yeah.
I think he's just Glaewyn.
Yeah, it's just I mean, I can't comment any further, but yeah, Yeah. So they meet after they, kill all these random wanderers who have some box they're trying to get. I don't even follow what that box was about. But
the package.
So,
They got to secure the package.
Imperial package they've got to secure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the package ends up being their way off the planet.
Okay.
Because that's what they open up, I believe, to do their little star tunnel shooty outers.
Oh yeah. Reverse planet jump onto out of good stuff. So
very technical terminology
of course,
that I was using.
We both nailed that. We both nailed that.
We crushed it.
So then Bell and Glaywin end up meeting with an Imperial informant, and this was a little bit confusing for me. Like suddenly they're talking to this other guy, and you're like, okay, what's happening? What's happening here? And then it turns out that other guy actually is the dude on Sowena who has been sending updates back to Empire for like years and years and years, and no one has ever responded because they got like cut off or whatever. Right. But he's just kept doing it. He's loyal to the old
loyalist, man.
Old Empire, man.
Through and through.
And so he shows them footage of when Constant and her high cleric buddy came down and did their little magic show so that Bell and his husband see, oh my God, these weird religious magicians, they've got personal auras, these protective shields that are supposed to be just for Empire.
Yeah, personal auras and, might I add, whispers. Whispers of jump ships.
And what they call a whisper ship.
A whisper ship.
And that's all these are, Barrett, is just whispers.
They're just whispers right now. No proof.
I was thinking about when he said that, he's like, he watches the footage and he's like, yeah, but until I see it with my own eyes, I'm not going to worry about this. And because just first hearing it, I'm like, what an idiot. He just showed you.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking about it, and having watched Silo recently, where there's quite a bit of visual manipulation that takes place, it does make sense that in this futuristic technological era, you wouldn't just like watch footage of something and trust it. Because even now in 2023, we're at the point where like if somebody shows you a video of something, the odds that it is real have plummeted in like the last 10 years. Plummeted. So I get his needing confirmation or whatever.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But the big thing is that like back out Empire way, they still need these archaic spacers to do jumps.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a big distinction here.
It's old stuff. It's old head stuff.
Empire needs spacers.
Meanwhile, the future kids out here in the Outer Reach, they don't need them spacers.
Yeah, they figured out their own way to do it.
They got their own way. They just drop a little triangle thing on their wrist, bada bing, bada boom.
That's it. That's all it takes. Spacer free.
Yep.
The informant also collects banned books, specifically printed books, and they were kind of enthralled by that, Bell and husband. And then the informant, after he gives them this information about what's been going on out there in the Outer Reach and what Foundation has going on, he asks Bel Rios to shoot him in the head after he's poisoned himself because Locke from Game of Thrones is coming to kill him and banging on the door. And I mean, I get it. I don't know that we needed the drama of this scene. Like, we just met this guy. None of us care. He's some Imperial rat. We're just like, what? Fuck this guy. Who cares? Yeah. I don't really understand why the rest of the planet of Sowena is beating down his door. Like, do they somehow know that he's harboring?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they know that he's harboring Empire.
Because the one guy that got away from the troop of scallywags.
Yeah.
He went and rounded up a bunch of people.
He got a posse going.
Which included Locke from Game of Thrones.
Right. The one who cuts.
The one who cuts. Yeah, and they're looking for those guys, for the two guys that started the melee, and they're a bunch of rascals. They're not gonna.
But why couldn't the informant just be like, oh, they came in and they used violence on me, and I didn't give them anything? Like, that seems like it would end
I feel like that dude had been there for so long,
he's just ready to go,
sending out a signal. That like once it finally was received, he was like, "My mission is fulfilled." He's just like, "That's it for me." It's not like that. I
have nothing left to live for. Shoot me. It was just a great line where he's like, "I would ask that you please use your plasma pistol on my head. I would note that if you refuse, I have already poisoned myself, but I think this would be much more
like dignified.
Dignified. Yeah. Well, he gets what he wanted, and Bell puts one through his noggin. He doesn't have to deal with Locke, the one who cuts. Glaywin Kerr, I said he has a few lines in this episode that are kind of on the nose. One of them is he's like, you have to be careful, Belle, about taking part in atrocities. Suddenly you're complicit in them.
Yeah.
Basically being like, he's trying to say like Empire is bad.
Yeah.
And whether or not you believe you have to do these things that you're doing, you might accidentally become part of the bad.
Right.
More so than you're realizing, right? And that's pretty much it for Bel Rios and Glaywin out there on Sowina. Now let's check in with Hober Marshmallow, Brother Constant, and Polly Verisov. I would note, last week we were confused because Brother Constant hugged two different dudes.
That seemed like father
we
figures.
were like, which one is dad? It's both of them. They're both dad.
Okay.
She has two dads. And Hober Mallow has wine from a planet that no longer exists. You know, like, I mean, if you've ever been a wino, you're aware that, like, there's really expensive wine out there.
Yeah.
I was fascinated by his little story about that wine. Like, it's not only wine from a place that was known for the wine, it's a place that was known for the wine that no longer exists. And not only does it no longer exist, the planet it was on no longer exists because Empire nuked it to death. So that's rare vintage there.
Very rare vintage, yeah. Might want to hang on to that one.
Yep. That's a car. Hober Mallow and Brother Constant, they seem to have some chemistry.
Ooh, it's really heating up, isn't it?
They're landing on us pretty thick.
Yeah.
That these two, they like each other.
Yeah.
And getting mighty flirtatious there. So
getting steamy in that old ship.
Yeah. So they arrive at Terminus, and then Hober Mallow and the two clerics and the leader of Foundation, who was one of Constant's dads.
Yeah.
They just enter the old vault. Like, Hober gets sucked in, tractor beam sucked him right in, and then everybody else is just like, "Well, we'll head on in there too." They just walk in. All you get's a little like sound, and then you're in there.
Then you're in there.
I didn't realize, like, I thought you had to be, chosen to enter, kind of thing. Like with vampires and True Blood, you have to.
I think
invite them in.
I think you. Yeah.
So you think this was just the squad that Harry was allowing in at this point?
Correct. I think you kind of like it's like you gotta you basically, it's kind of like going through a TSA security gate, right? And if you've got metal on you, it beeps, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those types of things.
It knows.
Like, it knows if you're allowed to come in or not. And if you're allowed, you just zoop right in there.
Yeah. Well, we find out the vault is actually a tesseract, which means it is an infinite space outside of time, and it can manipulate molecules to make.
I believe it's a four-dimensional space. It's a four-dimensional place in a three-dimensional one, or something.
Yeah, they
like
keep
that.
saying that phrase. That
it's got the fourth dimension. That's what I'm saying.
Does not compute for my lesser brain. Another concept that my feeble mind, 100% does not grasp.
But I think everybody knows that the more dimensions, the better.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing about in there though is that Harry's like, help yourself to some books in my library, my food, furniture, like, and then what's her name points out, like, well, anything that's in here is actually made of you. Like, your molecules are what is taken and used, and Hober Mallow has no problem eating Harry.
Yeah, well, that's just, we're all molecules, Ross. That's the thing.
Well, see, I get that part, but like everything in the vault being Harry and him being able to make anything because he has molecules and this, anyway, it's magic is what I'm.
Right.
That's the extent of my understanding.
Yeah.
And also Hober Marshmallow took a shit on the floor inside the vault.
Yeah. What a random ass line.
They just had to get that. That's what I'm saying at the beginning of the episode today when you said, like, it's getting pretty, what was the word you used?
Whimsical.
Whimsy in there. Yeah. Like,
such a random, weird line to drop in that Hober's just like, I've been in here for 3 days.
Yeah.
I had to take a shit over there.
Yeah. They're like, wow, it's really big in here. And let's go this way. He's like, good. Yes, that way. Because if we went this way over here, I've been taking steaming dumps on the floor. Like, okay. And then I was like, I was a little high watching this one. So I was like, what? I mean, you just shit in Harry's house. Who's going to come clean that up? Like, say, there's not a janitorial staff unless he makes those out of molecules too. I guess.
I think he can just disappear anything as well. So he just the poo just
disappears.
It just
so now we're back to the movie Envy.
Evaporates into the floor. I would say that's how I would describe it.
That was the whole premise for that movie with Jack Black and Ben Stiller. was that Jack Black's character invents the technology to make dog shit disappear.
But then the problem, right, is where is
it
all going?
That was the worst movie Barrett and I ever saw in theaters together. So Harry appears in the vault. He comes out and it's like, ah, and he recognizes that the Foundation has reached the religious phase. So he knew going into this, like, they're going to turn me into a deity. I'm going to be a god.
Yeah.
And so he acts like a god. He refers to Constant as his child, kisses her on the forehead. He acts like the immortal prophet that this church they have spun up reveres. And then he also confesses to Polly that he killed that warden intentionally. And now watching this for the second time through, I had a hard time determining if he was bullshitting. And I don't mean bullshitting like, because he says something like, well, a god's got to show a little wrath every now and then, to like get people in check, keep them in check or whatever. I don't know that he killed the warden. I'm starting to get the feeling that Harry is taking credit for more than he should. Like, I think the Prime Radiant did that. I don't think Harry was in there like scratching Hober Mallow's name into the side of the fucking vault either. Like, I'm starting to get the feeling that the vault and Harry are kind of acting as separate entities in some way. Because, like, this episode clicked some things into place from past episodes for me. Like, the whole experience of him getting his own body, that didn't seem like it was his plan.
Right.
It seemed like there was an outside force that...
The way that he describes it, it seems more like it was an outside force.
Like it was a surprise to him.
Right.
Like he showed up out there and Kade was in the fucking mountain and whatnot.
We do know that there are 2 Prime Radiants.
Right.
But now I'm forgetting where the second one is.
Salvor, Hardin, and Gale got it. Remember?
Well, they have one.
Yeah.
But where's the second one?
Oh, I think it's in here with Harry, maybe. Maybe? Oh, good question.
Yeah, I can't remember. We know that. I'm just not. I can't place it right now. Anyway, all I was going to say is that I'm not sure that the vault is the Prime Radiant. It's just this tesseract space that is Harry Seldon, right? It's a manifestation of his molecules, as we've learned that the thing he was in that turned into the vault, yada yada. It's all him. So, and I did take his word when he was describing why he killed the warden there. Oh, yeah,
that's true. He gave an explanation.
For basically where he was like, I think Brother Constant asks him, like, if that was divine judgment. And he said, like, I think he basically say, like, yeah, pretty much.
It's Polly that's asking, yeah.
And he was basically like, yeah, I mean, he was super fast to basically declare himself some type of prophet.
He said, how long before this guy is the one saying, like, I am the only one who can contact Harry Seldon. I am the chosen one. Yeah.
And then he was like, and also, like, the people expect a little fire and blood. They expect a little, you need to show a little kind of unhinged wrath.
Yeah.
To maintain the deity type status, right?
Keep people rolling with the plan.
Yeah. And so I took him for his word on that, but I do think that you're touching on something that definitely seems like it's going on, which we've kind of alluded to as well with the other Harry, with Gale and Salvor, about like how much is him, how much is the Prime Radiant,
right?
Who is actually calling shots, taking them to the different planets, and just kind of like what, we've got Kade and who's it, what's it, and other people just like showing up inside of the Prime Radiant. We don't know who Kade was. She was a physical embodiment of something, but wasn't registering as a live person on their little like tracker thing. Like,
right, that was all really strange.
There's a whole bunch of mysteries still, I think, about the Harry Prime Radiant kind of and Kade. I'll just throw her in there too. That whole connection and like what's actually happening there.
Yeah, they made some strides in episode 4 in terms of like the comparison between what's going on in this show and then like organized religion in the real world that we live in.
Yeah, I also thought, just sorry to interrupt, but there's another little like very pointed line from Harry when he basically describes, he's like, "Oh, you've reached the religion phase."
Yeah.
And he's like, you should be out of that in relative time, or what? He basically describes the religious phase as a phase of civilization and a humanity that eventually,
they outgrow.
With continued intelligence and knowledge gathering, you outgrow.
Right.
Which I thought was very pointed.
It was definitely saying something. Definitely
saying something.
He says like Oh, people love to kneel.
Yeah.
He's like, this was always going to happen. People
Right.
love to kneel. It's just like, damn, dude, fucking frying us out
yeah,
here.
so that was interesting. Yeah, where were we?
Oh, that's just that the show is doing a lot with the whole Harry Seldon plan to kind of say things about religion and what we've got going on spiritually out here as the humans.
But yeah, so he's giving everybody inside the vault their kind of marching orders for what's next.
Right. Assignments to prevent the war.
As
it were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Attempting to prevent the war is what he is outwardly saying is his intention. And that's his mission for our two clerics.
Yeah. Polly and Constant get sent to Empire to open diplomatic relations to some extent. We don't, I mean, obviously that's going to be something we see.
And they're the extended hand outward peacefully, and Hober Marshmallow is the knife behind the back.
Yeah. He stays behind after class, and Harry gives him a special assignment, which we're not privy to at the moment, I don't think, but it does certainly seem to be.
Yeah, and my read of that was certainly like maybe, another thing that we know about Harry is that he often does not tell everybody the whole truth and nothing but the truth. He likes to keep things kind of cordoned off, and only certain people know certain things. And it seems like Brother Constant and Brother Polly are not necessarily bait, but kind of on a fool's mission a little bit. Whereas like Hober seems to be getting the more important, like actual mission.
Yeah, would you want to go fucking preach to Empire about the Harry Seldon religion? Does that seem like a job you would want? Hell no. But yeah, they're all in believers. Yeah, Polly and Constant. So anyway, they're headed to Empire, and then we don't know where Harry sent Hober Marshmallow, but I guess we'll see in the near future. No Brother Day in this episode. No. At all. Queen Sereth is trying to figure out if her future husband, Brother Day, really murdered her entire family, which, let me ask you this. Do you understand how Queen Sereth's whole family got wiped out?
I think they were on a blimp.
Yeah, that's correct. I had no idea, and when I was like reading through this part of our outline for today, I was like, I don't think I know how they died. And I Googled it, and they were in a Zeppelin crash or explosion. Like the Hindenburg. Yeah. And she was just not on it? Anyway, that was a little funny to me. So Queen Sereth is like planting seeds with Brother Dawn. She's like, well, we're the same age. Like, why wouldn't we have made a fine match instead of me and your older, shittier brother? And she's sowing some seeds of discontent in there.
Yeah, she is
poking around.
This episode is really, really opening up Queen Sereth and kind of what she's all about. And she's making some moves. She's plotting.
She's sneaky.
Doing a little finger action here. Just kind of like moving and shaking, wheeling and dealing. Master of secrets. Talking to Day. Yeah. And removing her makeup to seem like a common folk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She does a lot. She's taking big steps here.
But what we learn is, in this episode is that she has reason to believe that Day kind of orchestrated the death of her entire family.
That she's certainly under the impression that it was likely Day that wiped out her whole family, and that there was something in it for him, like that's the only reason she is there now, right? Almost sort of implying in the same way that Harry Seldon is able to determine things via mathematics, that Brother Day was able to see several steps ahead, like, all right, well, I need somebody from Dominion to come and that would be the most, strategically sound coupling. And none of these folks are going to do it. But if I kill all of them, you know what I mean? So that seems to be the impression she's under. And she's talking to Brother Dawn, trying to determine, like, if his older self would be capable of killing her whole family just for his own means. And then she spells out for Brother Dawn that essentially he's about to be obsolete and utterly replaceable and essentially worthless soon. It's pretty dark, some of the stuff she gets into. Yeah. And then she finds a guard, Queen Sereth, that she convinces to be her informant. And she's going to have this guard look into the blind angel's assassination attempt. And when we hop over to episode 5 in a moment, we will get further into that. But yeah, that's pretty much it from the Empire side of this episode. No Brother Day, Brother Dawn is being somewhat seduced by Queen Sereth and
manipulated, worked.
Definitely getting worked. And then she's got herself an informant now. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs makes the most comfortable and versatile pants, shorts, and bathing suits in the entire world. I've been wearing them for several years now. Bird Dogs are phenomenal. I have an entire drawer of my dresser occupied solely by Bird Dogs pants, shorts, and bathing suits. I wear them to sleep, to do yard work, to work out, play basketball, go swimming. I wear them to do everything. Bird Dogs fit great, they look great, and they feel great. Ton of different colors, lots of different designs, all have funny names like the Art Fart Knockers, Duffy the Vampire Slayers, Uncle Bucks, and Teddy Rubskins, just to name a few. The shorts are incredible, but we are in the depths of winter here, so more importantly, their pants are great for the golf course, the office, going out to dinner, hitting the bars, and now they've got great-looking polo shirts that are just as comfortable as the pants and shorts. Click on the link in the description below to go to birddogs.com/dragon and enter code DRAGON at checkout. They will throw in a free Bird Dogs tech hat with every order when you use code DRAGON. It's a beautiful Bird Dogs hat for free when you go to birddogs.com/dragon and use code DRAGON at checkout. One more time, birddogs.com/dragon. Code DRAGON. Episode 5 of Foundation Season 2 is titled The Sighted and the Seen, and I'm really stoked to hear your overall thoughts on these two once we've kind of gotten through the finer points of the plot, Barrett. I wanted to open our discussion of Episode 5 by recognizing that apparently the clones and the genetic dynasty of Empire are not really a thing in the books, which is really interesting to me because, again, I think it's the best part of the show. Like, I think it's the thing that anchors the rest of the show is this group of 3 weirdos who are clones of this original Cleon and all of the problems and weird stuff that happens around that. Like, that's my favorite part of Foundation. And as I've said, I quite enjoy this show, so it's a pretty fucking important part of what I think is a great show. So the fact that they spun that up, that it's not in the books is wild. That's all I'm saying to begin our episode 5 discussion. We start this episode with a flashback.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
To Raish killing Harry Seldon at his behest, which we already knew happened and saw from a certain angle in season 1.
Yep.
Does Raish have the knife that Harry then ends up occupying? Is that what he kills him with? Okay.
Yep.
And then he chunks it into the pod and Gale gets shot off into space with it. Okay. Same
correct.
knife.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Then Harry, present-day Harry, who now has a body Harry that is with Gale and Salvor Harry, he has a dream or a vision of some sort of Raish basically telling him that he's very unhappy with how all this unfolded. So it seems like Harry Seldon is carrying a lot of guilt around like people he's having to quote-unquote sacrifice for the good of the plan. And whether or not this vision is some kind of a spiritual experience is really neither here nor there when it comes down to it. The point is, Harry feels terrible about what happened with Raish. And while outwardly we have heard Harry blame Gale repeatedly for everything that's gone on, it feels like internally he's struggling with like, well, maybe I didn't handle this as well as I could have.
Yeah.
And I'm not such a great god after all. That was my takeaway anyway. So, jumping over to Brothers Day, Dusk, and Dawn. Dusk watches old homemade porn with Rue, who it's decades old. This sex tape they get into here. Queen Sereth's right-hand woman, Rue, it turns out, was a concubine that Dusk picked up back in the day and developed a relationship with.
Back in the day, because he was day. Then.
But her memories were wiped.
Right.
You can't be coming around here no more, Rube. Shout out to Angus Cloud. But yeah, so a lot of talk in this episode in particular. We've kind of been building toward it, but like Empire's memories and whether or not they are whole is one of the big plot lines of this episode's 5. Dusk becomes suspicious that his memories may not all be there. And apparently memory altering is something only Brother Day has the power to do now after he became suspicious of the Blind Angel's assassination attempt. And even after making sure that Dawn and Dusk had nothing to do with it, he maintained that singular power a la George W. Bush after 9/11.
Yeah.
I just thought that was the most real world
comp
that we have. So Dusk and Dawn go to talk to a hologram representation of the memory of Cleon the First.
That's correct. Didn't know you could do this, did you?
Did not.
No, they hadn't busted this one out yet.
Wait, wouldn't you be doing this like every day? You're just like finally going to do this fucking season 2 halfway through? God damn, we've looked at this statue of Cleon
like a dozen times.
A lot.
Yeah.
And now they're like, oh yeah, by the way, if we both go put our palms on this thing, he'll pop out and answer any question we have like a fucking genie from a bottle. Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is another one of those funny moments.
It definitely seems like something that they wrote. And then they were like, we'll just retcon it. We'll just back explain it. We'll
just stick it in there.
Yeah, we'll just pop it in there.
It'll be fine.
They got the line from Dusk where he's like, yes, always too proud to admit that I should have done this.
Yes,
or whatever.
He says he literally has never done it before. He never. He could lower his ego and pride enough to go bring himself to talk to the original version of himself. So they're trying to solve their ongoing issues, Dawn and Dusk, with Day.
Yeah.
They've got issues with Day. There's a lot going on here. They feel like they're getting stripped of their power. They're less important than they were. He's holding like wartime power over into peacetime sort of kind of thing. And so they pop OG Cleon, the genie, out of this bottle, and he is not super helpful.
No, he's just like, there's a bunch of bullshit. Y'all got to work this out.
He's like, sucks to suck. I'm going back to sleep.
I did, the way that I interpreted what he was saying, though, I thought was another acknowledgement that things in the Cleon realm are slipping, basically. And that even though they've taken precautions and I think there are little lines in there that have talked about how they're self-correcting the DNA or doing something, but then they're also worried that their handprint's not going to work because their handprint's not an exact match anymore because the DNA is not 100%, like all that type of stuff. And I felt like Cleon's response to them is basically like, well, this shouldn't be happening. Like the way that I worked it out, the way that we worked it out is so that there wouldn't be friction, right? Like you can't,
because you're all one man.
Because you're all one man. You can't be envious of another because that's you, bro.
Yeah.
Right. So that like this shouldn't like it really and I thought, to add to that, I think they do an amazing job in season 1 of kind of showing that these three, even though that the power is kind of clearly like is a bit centralized with the Day character for kind of major overarching decision making.
Right.
They are each like very like everybody seems very happy in their role and truly kind of like united in this whole Cleon clone, we are one. Let me go burn myself in the sun ray when I'm 70.
When you're Brother Midnight.
Yeah, when I turn into Brother Midnight, like all good, no harm, no foul. So anyway, I thought that this is just continuing to speak to the fact that like these types of kind of petty grudges or concerns or suspicions or jealousies, like all this type of shit is like normal human stuff that these clones aren't really supposed to be experiencing. But the fact that the DNA is slipping in different directions and they're not exactly the same guy anymore is kind of like this is a problem. This is a big problem. It's a big problem because this is the type of stuff that would happen in a regular dynasty, right? In a regular government, a system of leadership. People are never satisfied with their position of power. They always want more. They're always trying to grasp onto more, and other people are always trying to make plays to reduce other people's power, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just thought this all kind of spoke to the fact that this is kind of starting to crumble anyway.
Yeah, it was hard to read because we don't really know what this Cleon the First hologram we're looking at really is, right? It's a representation of his memory in some form. We know that.
Yep.
But to what extent and how conscious or aware is that?
It didn't seem super conscious or aware.
Because you would think if he was super aware or conscious, when they tell him what's going on, he would be like, what the fuck, guys?
Right.
Let's get it together here, team.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
It definitely seemed like it was very much like a museum exhibit.
Yeah, definitely.
Where you like hit a button and like a hologram pops out and you can ask it like 4 questions, but it kind of gives you the same answer about all of them type of thing.
Yeah, you don't matter at that point. Yeah.
I also was wondering while watching that, like if Day has so much power, could Day manipulate what this memory bank does and says essentially?
I mean, you would think so.
So that kind of crossed my mind, but But most of all, my takeaway was that like this type of infighting is a pretty big sign that things are slipping.
Yeah, another way I took it, Cleon the First's response to them and regarding their question was like, well, if one of you has a problem with the other two, then you two should be supporting that one because you're one. He was basically being like, your problem is insignificant. Like, I mean, we kind of already covered this, but the point being, it sounded like Cleon the First, the hologram, was basically backing Brother Day more than he was looking to help Dusk and Dawn, which was a little weird and off-putting. But anyway, that whole scene was just absurd. I was like, wait, what? Fucking hologram of the OG, and we've just never bothered to discuss this possibility before? So Queen Sereth is still trying to figure out if Brother Day killed her family, which we find out he most certainly did.
Yes.
Or he had Demerzel do it.
Demerzel does it, yeah.
So Queen Sereth asks to copulate with Brother Day in the bedroom so she can get a look inside there. I thought this was a little bit, murky for me. Like, she was like, I found out where he was almost assassinated. It was in his bedroom. I'm going to get in there under the guise of sex and have a look around. Like, what the fuck were you going to see? It was just a little weird.
It was all pretty convoluted, yeah. Yep.
So she gives a better explanation after the fact when they're fighting. She's like, I got in here so I could see if it's even safe in here because I'm going to live here and I don't want to die.
But that was a lie.
Also bullshit.
Yep.
But at least it provided something for me to like be like, okay, well, that makes a little sense. But
she was looking for clues, I guess.
Yeah,
and
about what happened,
and
it works.
They get one.
It works for sure, but it was still kind of bullshit. Anyway, she's in there. She starts to like lay the seduction down on Brother Day, who turns into a bumbling boy. When he's being sexually aroused here. And then it turns out he doesn't know that women can be on top during sex, which was hysterical. He's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Let me show you. Which I guess Demerzel, out of sheer laziness, just like must have taught him that missionary is the only position. But they don't end up having sex.
It's the power position. It's the dominant position.
Yeah, it's the one where he can best get his seat in there.
I mean, I mean, seriously, I'm saying that with a smirk, but also like it like
for him.
Right.
Man on top.
To be on top is the more dominant position, which is where you can imagine an emperor of his nature would feel most comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Also just provided for some really funny lines here.
Yeah, it did.
So Day and Queen Sereth end up arguing. It gets pretty heated. And then they're engaged.
Yeah. And
then Demerzel comes in to like tug him off because he didn't get satisfied. I don't know that whole...
You're unfulfilled.
Shit gets creepy.
Yeah, Demerzel. She's a wild one. That
robot concubine in there, man, pulling strings and making shit happen.
Yeah.
So Queen Sereth gets that information from inside. She's like, I saw a blood splatter behind his bed.
Did he call it mold, by the way? Was he like, oh yeah, that's just some mold got in there?
Yeah.
Is that what he says that stuff is?
Yes.
Okay.
Which when they showed it, I was like,
it just looks like a piece of like silver plastered over some stuff. I don't know. I guess it was robot blood is basically what they were.
I think the robot blood is over the bed. I think what she was looking at when she's like, oh, look at this. This is a nice sculpture. I think there's like a sword slash in it or something from like when somebody swung at it. It got damaged was my impression.
Okay.
And then he's like, oh, that's mold.
Am I wrong? Isn't that not? Is that not what he says?
God, that's what he says.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I was just like, what?
But nothing I saw on the screen, like, because they pan over to Queen Sereth and she's like, this statue, this is what I'm talking about. And I saw nothing that made me go, oh, yeah, there's some mold on there.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Good mold growth there.
So she does get some information out of his bedroom, though. And then from her informant, she gets a video that shows Demerzel with a half head right after she dunks Brother Day and spikes him like a football into that healing pool.
Into the night milk, yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, she's a robot, which the interesting information that comes in here, because I hadn't really considered it. Like, we know Demerzel is a robot,
Right.
but I don't really remember in season 1 if they get into any of like the robot wars or like
they do a little bit, and we do gather from season 1 that she is essentially like potentially the last robot like in existence in the universe, basically.
And that's hammered home here because
Yeah.
they say like apparently there was a point where robots were very much a thing, right? And also I should note evolutionary AI was also very much a thing. Then both were banned.
Yep.
And people are under the impression that there are no more robots. Zero. None. Gone.
Yeah.
And that makes Demerzel pretty special, and her secret pretty
Although
dangerous.
One curiosity, and I mean, I guess there are a whole bunch of explanations for this now that I'm saying it, but like, surely somebody has seen Demerzel when they were 20 and then seen her again when they're 60 and been like, hey, yo, that chick ain't age.
Well, so I think they're under the impression that she is just being decanted
as well?
like the brothers are.
Okay.
Brother Day, Dusk, and Dawn, like Empire is.
Uh-huh.
Like, well, they've always got to have one of her, so we just, we use her that way too.
Okay, sure.
But they also do a lot, and this is, as we get further into season 2, it's a thing that I'm reminded more and more of from season 1 even. Like, when Brother Day almost died in the assassination attempt in episode 1, then she dunks him in the pool violently, and he's fixed up by these doctors. They go and wipe that memory from all of these doctors.
Right.
Like, so no one is aware that she ever had a half face.
Right.
No one is aware that he had an assassination attempt. So they're constantly doctoring other people's memories to fit their version of reality.
Yep.
And I guess the other thing with her is that she could just be constantly altering old versions of herself out of the memory or what. I guess, as she does not age, they could just be constantly like...
Yeah. Well, let's
hitting the refresh button on people's memories.
Let's just jump right to that because the Cleons go on their own little mission down there in the memory bank with our brand beat boop down there, just eyes fluttering, a flurry full of memory downloads.
Yeah.
And they everybody's playing tricks. They're doing their little Sherlock Holmesy games to figure out which memories they can access that will give them clues, right? And so the two right, because the Queen Sereth is like, well, we can't get those memories, we can't access Cleon's memories, but we can get the memory from
a helper,
from a doctor.
Yeah.
Right, and then the Cleons go down there and they're like, well, we can't get Day's memories, but we can access the whole list of how much every single Cleon's memory has.
Right.
And so another kind of I believe the episode ending reveal, or one of them, essentially. No, it's not the episode ender. That's over on another planet. But the Day and Dusk look at the bank and they see that Cleon 1 has basically 212 megabytes of memory or whatever, or terabytes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that every other Cleon since basically has somewhere in the range of 80 to 85.
Yeah, 73, 82, yeah.
And so
less than half.
Less than half. And so really what I'm taking from that, and shouts to Laura who actually pointed this out to me because I was too dumb to see it, but Demerzel is altering all the memories of the Cleons. That's I'm pretty sure that's
well, she's the constant.
Because she's the constant.
Yeah.
And it's not, and since they all have it, it's not like Day is getting in there and reducing his own memories.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense.
So it can only be her that's in there constantly altering even their memories.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I hadn't picked up on that all the way either.
And we've talked about this question of if Demerzel is way more powerful than we're kind of even giving her credit for. And I think more and more we're seeing her as this kind of almost puppet master, really.
Yeah, that's what they're alluding to at this point, for sure.
And even, she is the one taking care of things like a mass murder of a family, and really seems to have a lot of sway and a lot of power and control here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now the question becomes what is she erasing constantly? What all of these guys have less than half of the amount of memories. That means that's a lot of stuff getting wiped out of there. What is it and why? Because each new one that is decanted, all of the memories of the old one are allegedly installed. But it sounds like certainly not all of the memories from Cleon the First. There's a lot of shit from Cleon the First that they do not have.
Yep.
And that, in fact, they're probably having things from their existence wiped out of there as well, potentially. So, yeah, it's a crazy situation. I'm not sure it can be fixed, to put it in James Harden's terms.
Yeah, but definitely one of the more interesting things to continue to watch out for is the development of the Demerzel character, I think.
And the memory stuff. It seems like it's going to be a huge arc here. So, lastly, for episode 5, we've got Gale, Salvor, and Harry with a body crash landing on Ignis, which is supposed to be where they start the secret or the second foundation, right?
Yeah.
So Salvor gets out and she's like, somebody made us crash, and
somebody was watching us.
If they wanna fight, well, I'm gonna go give it to them before they give it to us. And so she goes outside by herself. It's another one of those moments where I was like, logically, what you're doing is stupid. She wanders around. There's some black cloaked hooded figure.
A little bit on par for the course for Salvor, who routinely did this type of solo ride out.
Yeah, you're right.
Over back on Terminus,
you're right,
as the warden. Like, this is kind of like what she does.
This is her shit right here.
This is her shit.
She's like, oh yeah, baby, I'm riding out there by myself.
Solo ride out to like investigate the whatever shenanigans are going on.
Well, to her credit, she totally sneaks up on the person trying to sneak up on her.
Yeah,
and
she gives him the old 1-2.
And that person is Hugo Crast, her boyfriend. But pretty quickly into the interaction, you're like, this is fucking weird. Sus. Like, she's like, wait, how are you alive? And he gives like an explanation that kind of makes sense, but also would be really bad writing. Not that this show is beyond that, because there are moments in the show where I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But I was like, this would be a really bad reinsertion of a character for the way he pops back up and everything. It's really suspicious. So you find out that's actually a mentalic or a psychic, but they're called mentalics on this show, who is creating a vision in the group's head so that they see something different than is actually there. So it's some like version of mind control, essentially, that this weird group of mentalics on Ignis has going on.
Yeah.
And they're led by some woman.
When they bust in the ship and then they knock everybody out, does he say unthink them?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And then they just all drop.
Yeah.
That was weird. And then they wake up in like some weird cult area. They wake up and they're like, well, there's no guards. This door is open. I hear voices. Let's follow them. And they go out, and then there's like a little girl sitting on a throne who says she's a god. And then it turns out the little girl doesn't actually exist. She's a vision.
No shadow.
The little girl didn't have a shadow, so that was a giveaway for old Harry with an eye. And then the real leader woman pops out. She's like, "Aha! I got you fuckers good." And she explains that this is like a community of these people that she's built in some way, shape, or form. Basically, they can hang
the whole planet. Basically. Is just a bunch of seers and mentalics and gifted individuals with some type of, ESP.
And she recognizes that both Gale and Salvor have some version of that, but she thinks Harry's a big dumb normie.
Right.
And then after she's like, take them to their quarters or whatever, and then she like turns to the camera and she's like, there isn't gonna be a second foundation. And she's like, dong. Oh shit. Fucking heavy. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, and Harry, who knew that this was not Hugo from the, he was suspicious early on. He tells Gale to go hide the Prime Radiant from him and don't tell him where it is.
Thank God Harry was onto this quick. Yeah.
Now it does leave the loose end of, well, they could just torture Gale to find out where the Prime Radiant is. But I guess it's good for them not to both know, right?
Yeah.
And so. But also puts Gale in a kind of a precarious situation, because I could see Harry just being like, I got to kill you, sorry.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to super value human life, not individually.
It's kind of a running theme, right? That's the whole, and this seer woman that is kind of El Presidente of Ignis.
Yeah, she's a witch, head witch. She
was the one casting the visions in his head.
Right.
From afar somehow as they approached Ignis even, and doing the Raish thing.
Oh, shit, you're right. Yeah,
that's what he says.
I did not connect that dot. Okay.
He's like, you're the one that was in my head.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah. So
she's powerful, this witch.
Well, and the whole planet, I mean, the whole planet can seemingly get inside your head and know your memories, because that's the only way that the original Mentalic or whatever that guy was, because he knew everything, right? He was like, oh, well, I put myself in the cryosleep just like you did and connected myself to the beggar, and I just said, wake me up when it wakes her up. And like, he had all the info.
Oh, yeah.
And so somehow these people can really get inside of your head and know all of your stuff, and that's spooky. But obviously, the foundation numero dos is gonna be an uphill climb for them here on Ignis.
It does. It does seem like that is going to be the case, Barrett. I will say this too. We're 5 episodes and we're halfway through season 2.
I'll stop the Michael Jackson Ignis
no,
thing.
it's so, please don't. I enjoy it thoroughly. Ignis, that's Ignis. But this season, like, basically now the table has been set. And for the next 5 episodes, you're going to see it all unfold.
Okay, all right.
Things really heat up here. It gets very exciting. Because just finishing episode 5 last night, I was like, oh, I remember being at this point and kind of getting annoyed. I was like, there's a lot of silly shit happening here. Like, stuff that I'm not able to fully suspend disbelief and, like, get on board with, and confusing stuff and just kind of nonsense. And I think that the nonsense silliness factor drops pretty substantially through the next 5 episodes, if you've struggled so far. Because I'm sure some of you have. But how have you felt halfway through here?
It's interesting because I think by and large season 2 was more critically well received than season 1 was.
Yes.
When I'm halfway through the season, honestly, what you're getting is like more Game of Thrones type storytelling right now. You're getting more like kind of like 3 or 4 tracks going that'll probably kind of connect and intersect at some point. A lot of people like sorting out kind of mysteries that are happening,
going off in their different directions.
Some more character development, new characters being introduced, some just more. I laughed out loud a few times during this episode. There's certainly some hijinks and just some wild stuff happening. So I can see why people are kind of more drawn to this type of storytelling. I personally connected so much with the kind of like just blow my mind with the expansive math space bullshit in season 1, that I'm not connecting to this season as much because we've talked about this ad nauseum on the podcast, but like it's just so hard to replicate that type of Game of Thrones magic where it's all really making sense and it's all feeling good and like nothing really feels like bad writing or a stretch or like super big plot hole or anything like that. And there's some of that here.
Homer Mallow took a shit on the ground in there, man. Like,
and I'm going to go back and rewatch the episode just so I can tell you that, like, I searched it when Bel Rios is like, yes, a good docking point, 250,000 kilometers from the world, from the planet, and then they just like jump out of the spaceship and are like landing on the ground in 4 seconds. It's like, no, dude, you were
you're too far. You're too far, buddy.
You're too far, man.
Can't do that. Get closer.
It takes like the spaceship like a week to get back from the moon or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so it's required a bit of adjustment, I think, in just like how I'm watching the show and kind of like what my expectations are for it right now. As we kind of get into I think one of these episodes, 4 or 5, even opens with a narration about, which kind of speaks to one of the larger themes of the show about like how important is an individual over the course of 100, 500, 1,000 millennia, right, of years. Right. And it's like the individual contributions and the individuals really in the grand scheme of thing, like you're a grain of sand. You don't matter. But we as humans, we do think we matter. We do think each other matters. And so that's kind of one of the themes is like, I feel like is these kind of individual stories. And so as we dive more into that and kind of like zoom in rather than zoom out, it's just like taking some getting used to for me, I think, but I'm still very much enjoying the show. It's not like I do not find it a chore to watch. And it still has so much fun, right? and I think what it's doing is still super interesting. So it still got me. It's just I so far I like the season less than I liked season 1.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody who watches season 1 and then season 2 and doesn't have to make that adjustment, because it does go from totally lacking in these Star Wars-y, Game of Thrones-y type characters to inserting them all over the place. They're like, hey, look, everybody's got a sense of humor now. Like, it's not just like, Brother Day says funny shit, but he doesn't know he's being funny.
Right.
He's just a fucking weirdo because he's the 18th iteration of a clone, right? But now you've got characters who are saying funny stuff on purpose, and like Hober Mallow, who is
Hober Mallow, Queen Sarah,
Space
Brother
Bad
Constant,
Boy, right? Yeah,
like,
there's a lot of
these side characters now have a lot more
personality. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And that's it's a bit of a struggle at first to kind of get on board with the new vibe here of Foundation season 2. Once you've kind of accepted it, which should be around the episode 5, 6, 7 point, then you can really buckle in and enjoy the rest of the ride. I think season 2 on the whole I like it more than season 1. But it takes these first 5 episodes of them like setting the stage in all these different places before you can really, I think, sink your teeth in. So we'll see next week. We'll go through 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Episodes 6 and 7 next week here on the show. Of course, Barrett and I will be back later this week on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles.
We had last week we had 6 calls. An awesome Patreon episode. The banter was at an all-time high, and I thought we got to sink our teeth into some more of this type of stuff. So if you left the Patreon or you've never tried it, because we were kind of waffling in between things or just kind of being all over the map, and you like the deep dive stuff more, last week's Patreon episode was great. Best we've had in a while, I thought. It was awesome. And thank you to everybody in the Mollusk Militia tier on Patreon who called in and contributed to the show. It means a lot. We love hearing from y'all. We love digesting your theories and your takes and answering your questions. So join us later this week on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles with over 1,000 members of the Clam Fam, I would note. Enjoying those bonus episodes with us. And when you join on Patreon, you gain access to our entire backlog as well, including Barrett and I's entire companion podcast for The Sopranos and all of our bonus episodes for The White Lotus and Succession and The Last of Us and everything else we covered last year. And there's a ton of stuff there. It's just $5 to join and support the podcast and unlock those Patreon episodes on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Now, if you want to be able to get access to the hotline and the Discord, you got to get in the Mollusk Militia tier, which is $10. Patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. We would also appreciate it if all season long you would continue to support our sponsors by using our dedicated URLs and codes. You can always find them in the description of the episode. Today we had birddogs.com/dragon, code dragon at checkout for that free Bird Dogs hat. If you're an F1 fan, check out Bolin Media's premier F1 programming, Formula Bone, at youtube.com/@formulabone for all the F1 fans out there. For more from me, Ross Bolin, check out the Ross Bolin podcast, wherever you get your OCC. If you're a Houston sports fan, check out Banging the Can. I know that's a smaller slice of you, but just thought I'd share that. Barrett, where can people follow you on the social medias? Follow me on Instagram, like the true millennial that I am, at Barrett Dudley.
Yep.
See everything else that I'm working on and doing.
Instagram. I'm at WR Bolin on Instagram. I also tweet a lot still, sadly. This is the life I've chosen. At WR Bolin on Twitter /X. And go to bolinmedia.com/shop to grab yourself some merch for this holiday season. All kinds of holidays coming up, Barrett, and people can buy themselves or their friends and family Succession-themed merchandise, House of the Dragon-themed stuff, White Lotus-themed stuff.
Do we need some Foundation-themed stuff?
I bet we can come up with something.
Please respect and enjoy the podcast.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
That's a good one.
That's a good shirt. It's a good shirt. We've got some the bear-themed stuff as well in there, bolinmedia.com/shop. I'm wearing the much-coveted crossed out or underlined, what is it? Kendall Logan Roy hat. I couldn't remember his middle name for a second.
Yeah, it's Logan.
It's his dad's name.
Yeah.
Kendall Logan Roy hat on bolinmedia.com/shop, as well as a bunch of other designs and t-shirts and mouse pads. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for supporting our show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And until next time, please respect and enjoy the podcast.